I call the honourable member Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And Mr Speaker, it is no wonder that the government members are taking such short calls this evening and have done so for much of the day, because their short calls are reflected in the size of these papers that we're presented with, these bills, and the amount of information that they contain. And they must be embarrassed, Mr Speaker, sitting on the other side of the House, to be fronted with these sorts of documents, which, if you look at them, cover the likes of taxation on children. And I never thought in my lifetime I would read a bill where it says Section LC3 provides for a tax credit for children. Section LC3 is repealed. Isn't that sad reading in this House, where it mentions a tax credit for children and it is repealed? In the same piece of paper where student loan schemes, where there was a 10% voluntary repayment bonus to try and encourage students to get on top of their loans and try and encourage them to put more money into their loans and get them paid off, that's taken away. No wonder, Mr Speaker, today in the streets of Auckland there are students marching in the streets. Students marching in the streets because, again, they're being hard done by. And no doubt, probably tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if they're not marching in Dipton as well, because down in Dipton, the farmers will be probably pretty disappointed with the abolition of changes to the herd valuation scheme. And again, you wonder whether this government just wants to offend everybody. Do they want to offend everyone? Because they're obviously going to offend a lot of their farmer friends. They've obviously written off the fact that students might as well just get on planes and disappear overseas and get away from their student loans. And they obviously want to offend the up-and-coming younger generation who are trying to save some pocket money and maybe get their taxes and everything back. They want to offend them as well. There's not many people at the moment that they don't want to offend. The only people that they seem to support are the ones from 2 years ago who they gave huge tax credits to. And you start to wonder in this House, Mr Speaker, how is it that 2 years ago such massive billions of dollars of tax credits were given to their mates, their wealthy mates, and 2 years later they're going after the children of this country, they're going after the students of this country, they're going after minor adjustments to farming requirements, and they're going after absolute trivia. And it's no wonder, Mr Speaker, that today there are so many reports coming out in the media today saying how disappointed the nation is with this budget. The budget that has come from the Minister Bill English, who learnt from Ruth Richardson, the mother of all budgets, and who today he's delivered the mini-me of all budgets. This is the pick-a-pocket or two budget, where basically he's out to get the last nickel and dime from wherever he can scrape it from. There's no vision in this budget, Mr Speaker. There's no vision at all. I've come from 30 years background in export, and I can tell you this is so disappointing for exporters. The good old days of incentives for exporters to get out there and earn export dollars for New Zealand, to bring more dollars home, to put this country on the world map. Where are the tax incentives for exporters to be out there? They're not. There's nothing. There's nothing there to help our companies get offshore and make taxes. Nothing there. And at the same time, we're getting statements from the likes of the New Zealand Manufacturers and Exporters Association today saying the fundamental problems, such as a lack of export growth, have once again gone ignored. The manufacturers and exporters saying they've gone ignored. And at the same time, Mr Speaker, as I mentioned earlier in the House, today, the appalling trade statistics that we're seeing, the April statistics show that we're 17% down on the same time last year for our exports. 17% down. And our members from the national benches over there can just sit there and say, what a wonderful budget. Aren't we producing great results while our exports are down, while our Manufacturers and Exporters Association are saying this is an appallingly poor budget, while the New Zealand Herald is making statements such as this is a most forgettable and dull budget. Quite honestly, Mr Speaker, this government should be embarrassed. But it all boils down to, Mr Speaker, that basically they have no vision. It's very clear they have no vision. And we're seeing it more and more in this House that this government is running out of ideas. So early into the second term of our government, It's almost unheard of. You would expect it from a third-term government to start running out of ideas, maybe a fourth-term government. But to only be 6 months into a second-term government and to be already running out of ideas and to be trying to repeat the same old promises from the budgets of 2011 and the same old budgets from 2010, none of which the promises came true, none of the promises came true, and now again they try to trundle out the same sorts of promises only to know, and they know in their hearts, and if they put their hand on heart, they know half of what they've printed in these documents is incorrect in terms of where we will be in 12 months' time, because they know, like last year, they promised 4-point-something% growth, and we got 1.1%. You know, they promised more jobs, and now we've got 50,000 more unemployed. They promised, you know, that John Key would be, he would stop when he was leader of the opposition, that the exodus to Australia would stop when it was only at 35,000 people a year. And we heard today that, you know, he said that in the Westpac Stadium, 35,000 a year sit in the Westpac Stadium and leave for Australia a year. And now we're heading towards 50 or 60,000 a year. So 3 years later, and now he's the Prime Minister, he must be absolutely embarrassed by the statements he made when he was leader of the opposition that he would stop all that. He would stop all that, and he stopped nothing. He stopped nothing. The situation is getting worse, and the people of New Zealand are starting to wake up to it. I was out on the streets in the North Shore last week, and I was surprised. Mr. Speaker, and I was surprised because I was getting signatures for the Keep Our Assets petition, and I was surprised to have national voters coming up saying, please, let me sign the petition, and even saying, I'm a national voter, and I have been a national voter, but I'm pleased to sign this thing, and boy, am I getting pretty disgruntled with this government, and I won't be voting for them again. National voters in a blue ribbon seat like North Shore. Maggie Berry over there knows, a blue ribbon, and they're coming up and saying, we won't be voting for National again. They're selling us down the river. And it's not down the river on a cabbage boat. It's not down the river on a cabbage boat. It's absolutely down the river well and truly. So, Mr. Speaker, we have been the witness of, yet again, an appalling budget today. This country is looking for growth. It's looking for export drive. It's looking for lifting our performance internationally. And we're not doing that. We're not doing that. This is like the Sky City Conference Centre. This is looking inwards. This is concrete bunker stuff looking inwards. This government is looking inwards on itself, not looking out to expand our opportunities internationally, on the export market and globally. This is all about cut, and more cut, and when you run out of things to cut, you start cutting into the children of this country. And so, Mr. Speaker, quite frankly, I think tonight the Minister of Finance, he won't sleep well tonight. He won't sleep well tonight. And he'll probably have dreams about Ruth Richardson from 20 years ago. And he'll be dreaming about Ruth and the mother of all budgets and saying, my God, I've done it all over again. I've brought in another failure of a budget. And in 20 years' time, people will look back and say, my goodness, National made a huge mistake in 2012, made a huge mistake in 1991, and how did the people of this country allow that to happen? Mr. Speaker, we certainly as New Zealand First will continue to oppose this. We will stand for growth in the economy, growth in our international markets, growth in job opportunities, growth in opportunities for our young people, and we will not be a Fagan government like this government is.
I call the honourable member
Thank you, Mr.
David
Speaker.